The morning light barely touched the horizon when the desperate cries echoed across the water. Emmy Rose stood knee-deep in the icy Russian creek, bucket forgotten at the muddy bank. A young native girl struggled to stand on the opposite side, her leg twisted at an unnatural angle, glistening with droplets of early mist and fear. Emmy squinted, her heart pounding as the river's current roared like a wild beast, pulling at her every step. She could see the girl's dark eyes reflecting both pain and determination. Most settlers would have looked away, turned back to their own lives, but Emmy was no ordinary child of the frontier. "Hold on!" she called, her voice thick with urgency. The girl's frantic attempts to stand sent waves of desperation through Emmy. She dropped her bucket, the sound muted by the rushing water. "Stay still!" She kicked off her worn boots, exposing her small feet to the chilling water. "Don't come!" the girl shouted in a language Emmy could not understand, but the panic in her tone was clear. But there was no turning back now. Each step into the creek felt like walking into a cold embrace, the current biting at her legs, urging her to surrender. Slippery stones hid beneath the surface, but Emmy focused only on the girl, her gaze locked onto those pleading eyes. Halfway across, the water surged, threatening to sweep her away. Her dress, now a heavy weight, dragged against her. "Just a bit further," she whispered, willing herself onward. The girl watched, wide-eyed, as Emmy fought against the creek's fury. With one last lunge, Emmy reached the bank. Breathless and soaked, she turned to the girl. "We need to get you back." The girl nodded, pain etching her features, her dark hair tangled with the dampness of the morning air. Emmy offered her arm, and they began the treacherous journey back. Each movement through the current felt like a battle, but Emmy held tight, her resolve unyielding. As they stumbled onto solid ground, they collapsed together, shivering and exhausted. The native girl's leg was clearly broken, and Emmy noticed the deep furrows of pain carving through her youthful face. But in her dark eyes, there was something more, a flicker of gratitude for the pale-skinned orphan who had crossed the creek for her. "What's your name?" Emmy asked between gasps, her voice steady despite the shock coursing through her. "Ayana," the girl replied softly, clutching her leg. "Stay with me, Ayana. We'll fix this." Emmy helped her inside her small cabin, its walls worn and familiar. She settled Ayana near the fireplace, where warm light flickered against the rough wood, creating dancing shadows that whispered promises of safety. As she rummaged for clean water and cloth, Ayana's gaze followed her, a mixture of curiosity and cautious trust. "You saved me," she murmured in her native tongue, the words foreign yet laced with understanding. "I just did what anyone would do," Emmy replied, kneeling beside her. The weight of Ayana's injury hung heavy in the air. "Not many would dare," Ayana pressed, her voice stronger now, accompanied by a flicker of defiance. Emmy met her eyes, the gravity of their shared moment sinking in. "Maybe they should." She poured water into a simple bowl and handed it to Siana. "Drink. You need your strength." Ayana took a sip, wincing as she tried to shift her weight. "I have to go," she insisted, her dark eyes now fierce and filled with determination. "My people will be looking for me." "Your leg is broken," Emmy countered, feeling the first stirrings of fear knotting her stomach. "You can't walk, not like this." The creek babbled outside, a low murmur that contrasted sharply with the tension in the room. Ayana pointed toward the horizon, urgency flooding her voice. "They will come. My father, he is Chief Takakota. He will bring warriors." Emmy froze, the weight of Ayana's words crashing over her. "Chief?" she echoed, her pulse quickening. The stories of the chief and his tribe had been woven into the fabric of frontier life, tales shared in hushed tones around flickering campfires. "Yes," Ayana insisted, her face lighting up with the fervor of someone who believed in the loyalty of her kin. "They will find me. I must go home." "Not yet," Emmy said firmly, the quiet resolve in her heart growing. "You need to rest. Let me help you first." With each moment they spent together, the divide between their worlds felt less daunting. The warmth of the fire wrapped around them, echoing the connection that was forming, fragile but real. As day drifted into evening, Emmy shared her meager supplies, trying to make Ayana comfortable. The evening deepened, shadows danced in the room, and the smell of wood smoke mingled with the scent of wild herbs Emmy had gathered. "Your people, they will not be angry with me?" Emmy asked, hesitating as she wrapped strips of cloth around Ayana's leg, doing her best with her limited knowledge of care. Ayana looked at her, a softness entering her gaze. "You saved my life. They will see your heart, not your skin." Their connection was a thread, fragile yet unyielding, woven through shared purpose and survival. As darkness fell outside, Emmy made a bed for Ayana near the fire, a shield against the night and its uncertainties. But in the quiet, as the lantern light flickered and the shadows wavered like distant memories, a soft rustle outside broke the stillness. Emmy's heart raced as she peered through the grimy window pane, the world outside cloaked in thickening darkness, punctuated only by the glimmer of stars overhead. "Ayana," she whispered, her voice barely rising above the crackle of the flames. "Did you hear that?" The girl nodded, her expression sharpening. "It may be them." Her pulse quickened, and despite the pain, she struggled to sit up straighter, her dark hair falling around her shoulders like a night curtain. Emmy felt the chill of fear seep through the cracks of her bravery. "What if it's the wrong kind of company?" she asked, her mind racing with the stories she'd heard of frontier justice and the deep mistrust that often marked encounters between settlers and tribes. "What if they think—" "They will not think," Ayana interrupted, her voice low and steady. "They will act. That is what warriors do." The urgency surged through Emmy. She grabbed a worn quilt and draped it over Ayana, tucking it snugly around her while glancing back at the door, pulse thundering in her ears. "We need to hide you, if they come." But just then, a figure stepped into the glow of the cabin light, silhouetted against the doorway. Emmy's breath caught in her throat as she instinctively took a step back, fear gripping her. The man stood tall, wrapped in a tattered blanket, his face shadowed, but fierce, framed by the flickering firelight. "Emmy," he called, his voice gruff yet familiar. It was Old Man Harris, the grizzled prospector who lived up the mountain. "You in there? Heard some commotion round the creek. Thought I'd check." Relief washed over her, and she opened the door wide, inviting the warmth of his presence. "Harris! Thank God it's you!" He stepped inside, his eyes quickly scanning the room until they landed on Ayana, who remained hidden beneath the quilt, watching him through wary eyes. Harris's brows knitted together, confusion mingling with recognition. "What in Sam Hill?" It's a long story, Emmy replied, her heart racing. She needs help. Help, Harris echoed, looking back at Ayana. With a broken leg, I reckon. Can't you see that? Ayana's chin lifted defiantly, her gaze unwavering. I need to go home, she stated firmly, her voice barely a whisper, but laced with conviction. Harris scratched at his beard, his expression softening. You're a long way from home, girl. It ain't safe out there after dark. You need to stay put. The fire crackled, embers popping like distant gunfire, and Emmy felt the weight of the moment settle heavily on her shoulders. She's not just any girl. She's the chief's daughter, she said, hoping to convey the seriousness of Ayana's situation. Harris grunted, running a hand through his hair. That might complicate things. He leaned closer to Ayana, his tone more measured. You sure your kin wouldn't come looking for trouble? No trouble, she insisted, her eyes fierce with determination. Only warriors. The air in the cabin thickened, tension curling like smoke around them. Emmy glanced between them, her mind racing. The weight of the world outside felt pressing and heavy, with shadows lurking beyond the threshold, waiting for their chance. Listen, Emmy said, her voice steadying. If we can reach your people first, then maybe we can avoid any conflict. But we need to make a plan. Tonight. Harris nodded slowly, weighing her words. Might be a wise move. If her folks are in these parts, they won't wait long before searching. As the flickering light danced around them, Emmy felt the fragile thread of their alliance tighten, woven with the hope that maybe, just maybe, they could bridge the chasms of fear and misunderstanding that divided their worlds. The creaking of the wooden floorboards seemed to echo her resolve, a reminder that even in the darkest of nights, light could still find its way through the cracks. Ayana shifted beneath the quilt, the fabric whispering against her skin as if echoing her unease. The scent of pine smoke curled through the air, mingling with the earthy tang of damp wood. I need to send word, she said, her voice a fragile thread amongst the crackling flames. Old Man Harris leaned back against the wall, arms crossed. And how do you plan to do that? You think your folks will be galloping down the mountain just because you waved a white flag? Emmy caught a glimpse of a small, crumpled piece of parchment peeking out from beneath a stack of old supplies in the corner, a forgotten letter that once carried promises of a better life. Inspiration sparked. A message! We can write a note. It'll be faster than finding them in the dark. Your people won't trust a note, Ayana replied, a flicker of doubt shadowing her resolve. They'll think it's a trick. Then we'll make sure it's not, Emmy insisted, rising to her feet. She moved toward the corner, heart pounding as she rummaged through the scattered belongings, her fingers grazing the smooth surface of an old ink bottle. Harris, do you have a pen? He grunted, shifting his gaze to the makeshift table where he'd set down his worn leather satchel. Should be in there somewhere. Just don't go making it too fancy. They're not gonna buy it if it looks staged. As she retrieved the satchel and fished out the pen, Harris nodded toward the fire, the flames licking higher with a burst of enthusiasm. Here, write it close to the heat. If you're gonna send word, might as well put your soul into it. With a piece of parchment laid flat on the table, Emmy focused, the ink gliding smoothly beneath her hand as she poured out their hopes and intentions. The words formed sentences that felt alive with urgency, bridging the gap between their worlds. Every stroke felt like stitching together a fragile tapestry where each thread held the promise of understanding. Ayana watched, her expression shifting from skepticism to something warmer, a flicker of trust igniting in her gaze. "You are brave," she said softly, admiration threading through her voice. "I'm just trying to protect you," Emmy replied, sparing a glance at the door, now shrouded in darkness. "This is bigger than either of us. If I can help you get home, we can avoid what's coming." Harris shifted his weight, a hint of respect in his eyes as he leaned closer. "Might be you're right, girl. But when the dawn breaks, it's gonna come fast. We should be ready." Emmy nodded, finishing the note with a flourish and rolling it tightly. As she tied it with a thin piece of twine, the crackle of the fire filled the silence, punctuating the gravity of their plan. Outside, the wind whispered secrets through the trees, a chorus of the unknown that echoed the anxiety in Emmy's heart. "Who'll take it?" Ayana asked, her determination rekindled as she eyed the door. "I'll go," Harris said, the gravity of the situation settling in his voice. "But I ain't much for running. If we're going to do this, we need to be smart about it." "Then let's think like warriors," Ayana said, straightening her back as the quilt slipped from her shoulders. "I'll lead you to the place where we can meet safely." Emmy felt a surge of hope, the air thick with possibility. The three of them, woven together by a single thread of purpose, stood on the precipice of the night, ready to confront whatever lay ahead. The cabin had become more than a sanctuary. It was now a launch point into the unknown, a place where they could rewrite the stories their lives had dictated until now. Harris pushed himself up from the wall, the old wood creaking under his weight. "Then let's not dawdle. If we're to make this work, we best be on our way before the moon fully sets." He reached for a rough, hand-carved lantern, its glass dusty but intact, the wick long since smothered by time. Emmy picked up the note, her heart quickening. This lantern, it can light the way. As he ignited the wick, the flame flickered to life, casting a warm glow that danced across their faces, illuminating the resolve etched in each expression. Ayana moved to the door, her breath a silent prayer against the night's chill. "We'll stick to the shadows," she urged, her voice barely above a whisper. "They won't look for us where the trees grow thick." The cabin's door creaked open, a gust of wind carrying the scent of pine and damp earth, inviting them to step beyond their sanctuary. The darkness swallowed them whole as they slipped into the forest, the lantern flickering like a heartbeat in the vast blackness. The sound of rustling leaves accompanied their steps, a reminder of the living world that surrounded them, filled with unseen eyes and mysteries lurking just beyond their sight. "Stay close," Emmy murmured, instinctively reaching for Ayana's hand, their fingers intertwining like the roots of the trees above. "We're stronger together." Harris led the way, his figure a sturdy silhouette against the muted glow of the lantern. "Keep your heads down. If it comes to a fight, we'll need every advantage." Each footfall felt more certain, the urgency of their mission pushing away lingering doubts. As they ventured deeper, the forest transformed, tall trees bending together like ancient sentinels watching over their path. Shadows twisted and swayed, creating a tapestry of fears that had long held Emmy captive. But with Ayana by her side, she felt a flicker of courage. "Do you remember the stories?" Ayana asked suddenly, her voice barely a murmur against the wind. "The ones about the old warriors who fought for their lands, how they wove their tales into the stars." Emmy nodded, the memories flooding back, legends of bravery, of bonds forged in the heat of battle. "They said, if you looked hard enough, you could see their spirits in the night sky, guiding the lost." "Maybe they are guiding us," Ayana replied, glancing upwards as a faint light pierced through the canopy, illuminating their path with a celestial wink. The flickering lantern momentarily dimmed, and Harris cursed softly under his breath. "Just keep it steady. We're almost there." His voice held a steadiness that wrapped around them like a protective cloak. As they pressed forward, the air began to shift, infused with the scent of wildflowers, a reminder that even in darkness, life persisted. The underbrush rustled softly, as if the earth itself was alive, breathing alongside them, urging them onward. With every step, they were not just fleeing. They were threading their own story into the fabric of the night, woven from fear, hope, and the undying resolve to find their way back to one another, to reclaim what had been lost. The journey ahead was uncertain, but the thread of their connection remained strong, guiding them through the shadows toward the dawn that awaited them just beyond the horizon. The path narrowed, and the trees seemed to close in, their trunks towering and twisted, roots curling like fingers clawing at the earth. Harris adjusted the lantern, its light spilling over a thicket where wild blackberries grew, dark, glistening jewels hidden among the thorns. "We'll need to be quiet," he reminded them, eyes darting toward the deeper shadows where something stirred. Emmy glanced at the berries, her stomach grumbling audibly in the silence. "Do you think we could—" "Not now," Harris interjected, his tone firm yet gentle, grounding them in urgency. "We can't afford to linger. We'll have plenty of time for feasting once we're safe." Ayana squeezed Emmy's hand tighter, a silent agreement to prioritize the mission over temptation. "This way," she whispered, leading them around the thorny patch, their footsteps muffled by the thick carpet of fallen leaves. A faint sound reached their ears, a rustle that echoed through the trees, close enough to chill the marrow in their bones. Harris held the lantern steady, its flame flickering nervously in the rising breeze. "We're not alone," he murmured, voice low. "Stay alert." Emmy's heart raced, an erratic drumbeat that drowned out the forest's natural symphony. "Do you think it's them?" she asked, fear creeping into her voice as she searched the shadows for movement. "Could be," Ayana said, her eyes narrowing. "Or it could just be the wind playing tricks." The wind picked up, a ghostly whisper weaving through the trees, carrying with it a scent that sent a shiver down Emmy's spine, a mixture of smoke and something sweet, like burnt sugar. "What's that smell?" she breathed, glancing at Harris, who seemed to steel himself against the sensation. "Something nearby," he replied, his gaze sharpening. "We need to move." Just then, a distant howl echoed through the night, sending a ripple of tension through their small group. The lantern flickered, casting eerie shapes that danced wildly on the bark of the trees. Emmy felt a rush of panic rise, but Ayana's grip remained steadfast. "We can't turn back," Ayana whispered fiercely, her eyes blazing with determination. "We're already too far into this." Harris nodded, his jaw set. Keep moving. If we stick together, they won't break us." He led them forward, weaving through the underbrush, the light from the lantern leading them deeper into the heart of the forest. With every step, a shared understanding blossomed. Their fate was intertwined, a single thread woven through the fabric of the night. The shadows held secrets that could either bind or shatter them. But in that moment, as they journeyed into the unknown, the lantern's glow symbolized more than just light. It was hope, a beacon guiding them toward their destiny, whatever that may hold. The thick canopy above them began to sway, branches creaking like ancient bones as the wind picked up, carrying whispers that seemed to echo their fears back at them. The lantern's flickering flame danced nervously, casting long shadows that flickered and twisted as if alive, ghosts of the past watching their every move. "Just a bit further," Harris urged, his voice barely breaking the silence. Heavy with the weight of unspoken thoughts, Ayana's breath came in soft hitches beside him, her focus unwavering despite the encroaching darkness. The forest felt like a maze now, each path seemingly the same, a never-ending loop of bark and shadow. Emmy's eyes darted to the ground, where bioluminescent fungi glowed faintly, illuminating the trail with an otherworldly luminescence. "Look," she pointed, momentarily distracted. The tiny lights pulsed like heartbeats in the gloom, a reminder that even in desolation, beauty could flourish. "Stay close," Harris urged again, his tone sharper now. They pressed on, moving past twisting roots and damp earth, careful not to disturb the stillness that lay heavy around them. The howl returned, this time closer, reverberating through the trees, and Emmy felt the hairs on her neck stand on end, the thrill of danger thrumming in her veins. As they turned a bend, the trees parted slightly, revealing a clearing bathed in a silvery light that spilled down from the moon above. It illuminated a weathered stone well in the center, overgrown with moss and vines, water pooling at its base. Emmy felt an inexplicable pull toward it, as if the well was a portal to another world, secrets waiting to be uncovered. "Harris, what if we—" she started, but Ayana's hand shot out, gripping her wrist. "We can't stop," she insisted, urgency lacing her words. "It could be a trap." "Or a sanctuary," Emmy countered, her curiosity battling her instinct to obey. The lantern's light flickered again, as if the very flame sensed the tension, the air thickening with unspoken potential. Harris took a cautious step forward, the tension in his shoulders suggesting a battle of wills. "We don't know what lies ahead, or what that howl means for us. If we're going to survive, we need to focus. We can't let distractions pull us off course." But the well's allure lingered in the air, and as the moonlight wrapped around them like a shroud, it felt more than just a relic of the past. It was a part of their story, a thread that begged to be woven into the tapestry of their escape. "Trust the thread," Ayana murmured, her voice barely a whisper. "It will lead us home." Together, they turned away from the well,